Yeah, no, it reminds me of that book, like Thinking Fast and Slow. I don't know if you've read that by Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah.
In the blog post, they say, it makes sense for Claude to just have one brain essentially and have the ability to answer like quick questions, like System 1 questions, where it's like almost reflex, and then do deep thinking, like System 2, as in the book, where it's more slow and thought out. And yeah, they've just kind of embedded this into one model, which I think is a great idea, actually. Wow,
Advancing
this is
to level
incredible.
2, get ready for more challenging enemies.
I'd
now
actually
I have
play this on my mobile.
Yeah, I would play this. And this is like, I said, oh, can you make it just an HTML game? This is JavaScript. Like, this is pure JavaScript. I don't think you get like, this is, I want to show you, I just want to show you the code. Give me 1 second. Like, look at this. This is the whole code. This is like pure JavaScript, HTML, CSS.
This would take a person like weeks, no?
1,500 lines of code. This is 1,500 lines of code. And it wrote that without a mistake. It would, like, if I was to make this game, it would take me a week.
It's the anatomy's still a bit wrong, and like the large intestines down here is like around the groin area, and floating in the air. But the functions are correct.
Yeah, but okay, that was probably not the best way to draw these. Like, I think, whoa, what's that?
I told it to make it more fun and dynamic. So this is 2 prompts. This is 2 prompts. So it's kind of amazing. Welcome back to Dev and Doc, the podcast where developers and doctors join forces to discuss AI and healthcare. So last night there was big news. Anthropic dropped the new Claude Sonnet 3.7. I mean, we weren't going to make a podcast for another week, but I think we have to, given that this is such huge news. Like, I've personally been super excited for Claude. I've always been a big fan of Anthropic. The models always just seem really human-like and very intelligent. In this episode today, we're going to be covering the main summary of what we've learnt from reading through the technical notes and the system cards of Claude Sonnet 3.7. We'll also be deep diving into a bit about what we've done and the potentials of the future, and also applying it to some really exciting healthcare examples. Over to you.
Yeah, very nice. I think we start with just a bit of a overview of what is Claude 3.7. Really, also, we just learned about it last night, so there is not too much information out there. We expect that over the next couple of weeks we'll learn a bit more, and maybe a white paper or something like that will come out. But for now, we just have like 2 blog posts and a system card that is basically talking about just the high level stuff. The system card is going a bit more into the safety and security details, but we still don't know much about the model itself. So in short, there is one fun thing they have done. So every other model that we have, what they have done, or every other company, what they have done is they've released a reasoning model next to their standard, whatever, large language model. Like in OpenAI, you have ChatGPT 4.0, and then you have the O1 or the O3, which are reasoning models. But what Anthropic has done is combine those two. So you have one model that does both things. And basically it's just a flag that you say, oh, think or don't think, just respond directly. Which, to be honest, makes perfect sense. They were saying that having one model trained in this way, the model learns more, is able to generalize more, is able to basically transfer the knowledge from both sides. So transfer the knowledge from the standard LLM and also transfer the knowledge from the reasoning part into the standard LLM. So awesome to see.
Yeah, no, it reminds me of that book, like Thinking Fast and Slow. I don't know if you've read that by Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah.
in the blog post they say, it makes sense for Claude to just have one brain essentially and have the ability to answer like quick questions, like System 1 questions, where it's like almost reflex, and then do deep thinking, like System 2, as in the book, where it's more slow and thought out. And they've just kind of embedded this into one model, which I think is a great idea, actually. It should, and often it just figures it out itself, right, when to actually think a bit deeper.
Other companies are also going towards this. Like if you looked at the news that came out from OpenAI in the last week, they were also saying that GPT 4.5, that will also be coming out in the next week or two, given all the hype that's happening, will be the last non-reasoning model. And what they expect with maybe GPT, 5 or 04, 05 or something, is that it will be one model that is unifying the reasoning and the thinking. So, the reasoning and the standard non-reasoning models. So Anthropic basically released that a bit sooner than OpenAI. OpenAI, we expect that maybe mid this year. Maybe now they'll be a bit faster because Anthropic pushed them a bit.
And Anthropic also, in the blog post, they really talk about the future, right? So they've got this graph here, which we can share. But it's saying that in 2024, Claude was assisting, and now in 2025, we're talking about collaboration. So I guess that signals that it's doing more, I guess, collaborates versus assisting. And then in 2027, they say, it's going to be pioneering a lot of the topics.
I think it's still assisting. I mean, even with this version, but probably by the end of the year or something, we'll get to the more collaboration part. And I think this is maybe going into the other thing that they have released, which is Claude Code. The code part is basically, it is a terminal-based application that you can give a code base, and then Claude can interact and execute commands and edit your files, test is something working. So basically, it is almost a terminal agent that is able to help you with your code base or just explain the code base or stuff like that. And I think that is going more in the collaboration aspect. To be honest, like to me, this was one of the biggest things they've released. I love working in the terminal, and this allows you to just immediately have the possibility to not open another tool or whatever. It is immediately in the terminal for many people that are working, that are basically like working on remote servers or stuff like that. Having a terminal-based application that you can immediately interact with Claude, have it edit 50 files at the same time or change your code base or whatever. Best thing ever, basically. Okay, so the first and basically the most surprising benchmark, just to maybe mention one thing before going into this, they have focused in this release of Claude significantly into coding, into software engineering. It is also better in a couple of other things, like we'll just see in the results in a second, but there was an enormous focus on coding. And in fact, there was an enormous focus on real-world examples, much more than maybe competition-based coding or math examples or stuff like that. They are saying these themselves, basically. But it is also obvious from benchmarks like the software engineering benchmark, where basically they are going above 01 by, in some cases, like more than 20%. And even 03, R1 from DeepSeek, Claude 3.5 or 3.6, basically the previous version of Claude. And this is a big leap. This is not only improved a little bit, because you see how every other tool is basically there around 50%, 49 in fact. And then you have a leap of 62 with the standard Claude and custom scaffolding, basically a bit of different prompting and different ways of posing the questions, you go to 70.3%, which is 20% over.
This is incredible. Like, O3 Mini only came out, what, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this is, and DeepSeek was like the main news 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's really going exponential. Like it's crazy how much of a jump is. Like I don't think people realize this is really huge.
No, exactly. And it is like, these are proper hard questions. These are not your lead code examples where you are asking to sort an array or something like that. These are like proper software engineering questions. And it is interesting that they decided to focus on these completely. I think like it makes complete sense, because probably one of their biggest customers was Cursor, which is the basically like AI assistant for coding. And I think the biggest adoption until now was basically by coders. So they decided to go full on that way and like improve in the coding aspect much more than maybe in some other aspects. Like if we look at agentic tool use, there was a much smaller improvement. It is still better than everything else, just to make that clear. But it is a much smaller improvement compared to what happened above. Like the airline bench from agentic tool use, we have basically a jump from 01 from 54 to 58, which is still 4% better, 4 percentile points, sorry, not 4%, but it is a much smaller jump. Maybe the last benchmark that I just wanted to show from these standard ones was basically a couple of things like visual reasoning, instruction following, math problem solving, and all of that. And even here we can see that they didn't over-index on this aspect as much as maybe O3 or OpenAI has done, or even R1 has done. We can see that in some cases it's even worse than O3. Like you have math problem solving, Claude 3.7 is 96.2, while O3 is 97.9, or even R1 is 97.3. High school math competitions, it is, for example, significantly worse than Grok 3. Grok 3 is 93%, Sonnet is 80%. So like they obviously didn't focus too much on these. And this was even me just like playing a bit with it yesterday, I noticed that I basically preferred O3 for some more logical tasks than I preferred Sonnet. So like there is one task that I do often, and that is creating annotation guidelines. So when you are creating annotation guidelines, you just have to take care of all the edge cases and make sure that you write like in a very clear and concise manner, so that when you give these to people that will then annotate documents, for example, for diseases. This means like someone manually goes through a document and marks, highlights all the diseases in the documents. So you need to provide the guidelines on how to do this. Claude was not the best. Like it was, sure, it looked good and everything was nice, but it really felt like it has this coding mind. Like it approached this, gave me a straight solution, and that was it. It did not, like O3 went much more in detail, really covered the edge cases, really tried to help people, while Claude didn't. This is really a small N. It is just me testing on a couple of examples, but it's the like vibe check that is currently very popular.
I think another part of their messaging is that they've really improved this, the rejection rates of harmful requests. So as you know, like every company has been doing different guardrails, different prompts in the background to make the model more safe and harmless. But the downside is if you go too much towards one side, you might end up rejecting innocuous requests, which are maybe actually quite sensible, but about a sensitive topic. So they talked a lot about how they have an internal benchmark where, they've trained the model on and improved its rejection rate. So it's now less likely to reject kind of false positive requests. So requests that may on the surface seem a bit sensitive or harmful, but actually is actually fine. So they have their own benchmark for this. I don't know. I think it's very nice to see that they do have a focus on safety and harm. Yeah, and, they're not just taking it too much one way because, that could actually impact the model capabilities and performance.
No, I agree. And they even had a challenge during the last couple of weeks where they basically put out a reward for anyone who manages to break Claude, basically. Like,
they have that red teaming thing. Yeah.
If you manage to get it to output something harmful, you basically got money. So they really, I would say they are really focused on the safety and security, but they're also trying to do the other side in a sense that it should not be overly cautious and refuse to respond to everything. So it should be like, it shouldn't answer about, I don't know, I think one of the examples there was it shouldn't answer about how to make a poisonous gas that is basically like...
Yeah. Let me show it here. It's they'd have like viral... with Anthropic, they have all these ASL ideas, right? Like bioweapons, like things, or like autonomousness of an agent, because they want, before they release a model, they actually sit down with world experts to see if it's safe enough. Like, can they actually make a bioweapon from scratch, or can they design a virus from scratch that could potentially, cause another pandemic? I mean, it all sounds quite crazy. Like, it sounds quite dystopian, and I personally don't think the model is anywhere near that at the moment, but I think it's good that they're having these conversations. What I don't know what you think about that. Is it too much, or is it okay?
To be honest, I am a bit on the man, you are overdoing it a bit, but I also like that someone's doing that. Would be, of course, great is if some of these things were open sourced and some of these benchmarks, tests and everything else was made available so that anyone can test their models. I do think probably quite a bit of this work is still manual, but in any case, like, they released an awesome model and they invested a lot of time into safety and security. So I don't mind, really.
The one thing I found interesting in the model card was this training data and processes bit, where they basically said they've trained this entire new model, but they've been very like ethical with how we crawl. So they didn't like bypass any capture controls. They didn't crawl any sites that didn't want them to, and they're even saying, we're following the UN Declaration of Human Rights and aligning it to these principles. And one really interesting thing here as well is that they said this new model has not been trained on any user prompt or output data submitted to us. Like, that's crazy, isn't it? Like, they've had so much user input and they've trained the state-of-the-art model without actually using any of the input data. Like, this seems unbelievable to me almost.
It also makes like how useless the user input data is, because I'm sure they would have used it if there was any use to it. But obviously it was very...
Too much noise, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Probably. I mean, again, it is really nice to see that they are following all of these. It is nice to see that they are doing things a bit according to the rules and not scraping the whole internet, ignoring everything.
And next we have this, I think, amazing benchmark which they've released, Anthropic themselves. And this is a Pokemon playing benchmark. Did you ever play Pokemon on? I'm guessing this is the Game Boy version. Yeah, did you play Pokemon when you were younger?
Man, I never played Pokemon. I played a million other games, and I don't know how, but Pokemon was not one of them.
What the hell? I mean, Pokemon was an amazing childhood game. Everyone was playing it in school.
I know. Same. I know.
But you just never got on the trend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, it's not too late. You can still play, but it's like a free roaming game where at that time was kind of state of the art, right? Because it felt like it was endless, and you could play it on the Game Boy, so you could take it everywhere with you, and you're playing as a trainer, and you're going around basically fighting different gyms, you're getting different medals, and you can see here. So the best thing is the top is get Surge's badge. That's like it's one of the most difficult bosses. So it's really interesting how, I mean, this is a step towards the agentic side they're talking about, right? It's like, I don't know how much training or prompts they gave the model to play for this. But the fact that it can actually play Pokemon is incredible. I mean, you can see at the bottom here, how do you interpret this? Number of actions. So it took 35 actions. I guess each action is probably like pressing a button.
35,000 actions.
35,000 actions.
Yeah, it's just pressing buttons. Anything that is interacting with the game.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, and again, a giant leap from before. You can see that basically like the 3.0 Sonnet couldn't do anything. Like unbelievable, this was a year ago. A year ago, the Claude Sonnet couldn't do anything. It couldn't even get out of the house, basically the initial starting point. Then you have the 3.5 that was able to do maybe like 5 of the goals. Then you have the 3.6 or 3.5 new that was able to do a bit better. And then you have this one that was able to do basically almost everything in the game.
Yeah, I wonder if it found the hacks as well, because I remember I can't remember exactly, but there's like a hack where you can get Mew as a Pokemon. And I wonder if it figured out some hacks.
Maybe.
Does it say?
No, but yeah, in any case, this is awesome. But what I want to do before we go into the medical stuff, I want to show a couple of things I made yesterday, which made no sense. Like the fact that, because we are now talking about games, let me show a couple of games I made yesterday. This really, like, this was a 0 shot, which means like I just gave it the prompt once. There was no fixing. There was nothing. There was not even complex explanations or anything. And I asked it, so basically like I went and asked like, oh, do you know about the NES game Bomberman? And it said like, yeah, I know about the game. It is released this and that. You play as basically like you put bombs around and you break blocks and you need to run away from enemies. Well. Exactly. Like this one I know from exactly. And I was like, oh, can you make that? She was, sure I can. I was, what? I was expecting like the output will be garbage. I will need a million iterations. It looks awesome. It looks basically like the game. It even gave me like this small how to play.
Wow.
I have 2 types of enemies. There's a basic enemy that's random movement, and there is a smart enemy that follows you around.
Does it actually work? Like,
yes, it does.
Can you actually play it now?
You can put bombs, you have the enhancements, so you have the larger explosion, you have the move faster. I can really go around, put bombs. Like,
this is
look
so
at the
good.
Look
the
at
animation
the animation.
As well.
Exactly. It is not like, it's not some random whatever. It is really looking
very good.
Like a nice animation. There is the bomb, there is the explosion, there is a bit of like, oh, there's grass in the background, the blocks are dirt or whatever. Unbelievable. And it has multiple levels. It is not like one level.
Really?
I can beat
Wait, did you tell it to do that? Do you tell it to make multiple levels?
No. You can, like, once you finish this, you can go on to the next level where you are. Look, now I got the enhancement. Like, this is now a bigger bomb. Like, look. Now it's a
Wow.
bigger bomb.
This
I
is
can,
incredible.
if I get these plus, this means
You can
now
get two bombs.
I can set 2 bombs.
Yeah.
I have the
Wait,
speed,
finish
which
this
now
guy.
I
Finish this guy.
can
Finish this guy.
see, and now
Nice.
I can go to the next level.
Wow,
Advancing
this is
to level
incredible.
2, get ready for more challenging enemies.
I'd
Now
actually
I have
play
the
this on my mobile.
yeah, I would play this, and this is like I said. Oh, can you make it just an HTML game? This is JavaScript. Like this is pure JavaScript. I don't think you get like this is. I want to show you. I just want to show you the code. Give me 1 second. Like, look at this. This is the whole code. This is like pure JavaScript, HTML,
Oh my
CSS.
gosh. This would
is
take
like-
a person like
This
weeks,
is-
no?
1,500 lines of code. This is 1,500 lines of code. And it wrote that without a mistake. It would like, if I was to make this game, it would take me a week.
Yeah.
At least a week to code this and make it nice and whatever. It has done the whole thing in around 2 minutes.
That's scary. I mean, it's amazing.
But it's
right?
awesome. It is awesome, man. I love this. I'll now be making games every day. Why not? Because you can make all the games that you want in whatever way you want really easily. And this is not really using not using cursor or not using Claude code. This was just a straightforward prompt. It was to the thinking model. So I tried the same with a non-thinking model. It was not the best. The game didn't really work well. But with a thinking model, it was one shot, first try.
Can I show you my game? I also incidentally stayed up
Okay.
really late making a game. So this is inspired by my time in hospital. So it's called Hospital Runner, right? Wait, let me restart.
Oh, man.
Hospital Runner. I mean, it doesn't look as cool as yours, but you're helping a doctor run through like a busy hospital corridor, and you're jumping over obstacles. I added in the double jump as well because it's quite hard clearing some of the obstacles. And you're jumping over managers, virus balls, clinical waste bins, and cups of tea. So look, well, it's made it really hard. I'm
Oh
actually
my
pretty good
God,
at
that
this.
is what?
And look, I told it to put NHS in the background. Oh, I died. But
Man, that is
This-
a very hard game.
I
What
know,
is that?
well, I don't know. It's very fast.
No, it's awesome. I love it. I think like
But-
if you play it full screen, it will probably be a bit easier. But on that small screen,
True.
it's a very hard game.
But it's amazing. Like, it really is incredible, right? Like,
Wait,
I
did
don't know.
you? It drew everything, like all the doctors, the viruses, the whatever.
Yeah,
you didn't
I-
provide pictures.
No, I didn't provide anything.
See, that's the stuff that makes no sense. It's like you don't provide any visual stuff. It creates all the art that's needed. It
Yeah.
obviously was significantly trained for this. There is no way in any shape or form this is like without significant training that it's able to do this.
No, but it's still amazing, nonetheless.
No, of course. I want to show a couple more examples that I have. I have one that is creating a web page. So, like one of the main use cases that I had with LLMs was just, I need to create a small website for something. So let's create a website. I'm not the best web dev, so it is awesome if I can just give the task to a language model and have it do that. And this is like, I basically said like, create a SaaS platform website, whatever. I didn't give any other prompts. Like this was basically a one sentence prompt in create a SaaS website. And this was the output. Like it made everything. It made like the customer feedback part where I have like really nice stars. I have all of that. I have a pricing. I have frequently asked questions. I have really nice footer and header. It's a ready-made site. That's it. There is nothing else that I would need here.
This was one prompt, or
this was one prompt. Like this is out of the box one prompt, not even
amazing.
the thinking model. Like this was the stupid model, which is still extremely smart.
Okay, this is amazing. Should we switch to the medical side? Let's put it to some medical tests.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. We are still an AI for healthcare podcast, so we should do the medical stuff also. I was playing quite a bit with basically the standard questions we ask, which is clinical coding. I basically have a document that is just a patient visit, and the patient is, we have a bit of history, we have what is the current problem, we have the medications, we have previous medical history. So it is like a hard document for extraction of biomedical entities. So like extraction of diseases, symptoms, medications, and so on, because it has a lot of
it's medical terms. There's like there's acronyms. So LOC, for example, there is loss of consciousness. You've also got specific medications. These are American names, but some bits are very tricky to code there.
Exactly. And in other tools I have or we have made in the past, this document doesn't perform extremely well. Like people, you get there 80%, but not 100%. So I just basically gave it a prompt on what it needs to do. And this prompt, like this is the annotation guidelines. It wrote itself. So all of these is, I just told like write annotation guidelines for extraction of biomedical entities, and it wrote these guidelines. And then I just gave it the text and wrote and gave it the guidelines. And with respect to identifying and standardizing the extracted entities, absolutely awesome. Like you will have things like where it's standardizing things. For example, could not rise from chair, it is difficulty standing. This one is the only one that I would say like, maybe not the exact right standardization of the raw text. So it does occasionally make a mistake, but it is able to like properly separating. So for example, in the raw text, you have left hand numbness lasting 2 hours. It will say that's a symptom. It will say the standardized name is numbness. It will say that temporal info is few hours after presentation, lasting 2 hours. It will say anatomical location, left hand, severity not applicable. Like it really extracts the proper information from the document, standardizes everything, and nicely separates into
it's very good. Like reading this, it seems to follow, like, first of all, the guide, you didn't tell it how to do the guideline, right? So the guideline looks good. Yeah, the headings look good. Wait, so you didn't tell it about temporality and experience? It figured out itself?
This was all by itself. I just
That's
like
crazy.
Go and write some guidelines.
But isn't that amazing? Because that's that's very similar to the guidelines we made.
No, exactly. This is basically the same guidelines we would have written, or we have written for clinicians when we were doing annotations. And even for medications, for example, it standardized them to I think this is this the substance or the
it's the drug. So Lasix is the American brand name for furosemide, water tablets. That's very good. Just
to finish up, like after that, I asked it also to do SNOMED coding, assign SNOMED codes for each one of the extracted entities. And it's not good at this. It is not very good at doing this. So basically, some codes are right, some codes simply don't exist or don't make any sense. So here it's like, it's almost 50-50, which to be honest makes sense. I don't think this model should be used to do SNOMED codes. First of all, SNOMED, I don't even know how it works. SNOMED is not publicly available, so probably all the information it has is from random websites or whatever. And there is a lot. There is like 700,000 SNOMED codes.
And growing, it's growing every day.
Exactly. So I don't expect these to work extremely well. And it should not be done this way. This makes no sense to do SNOMED coding directly. Maybe if it was trained specifically. But the fact that it can identify everything 95% of the time correctly, awesome.
Yeah, there was actually a paper that I read yesterday that showed that large language models are very good at this entity extraction step, maybe not so much the linking. But the other thing it's good for is relation extraction. So like knowing that, if a patient came in with a rash after, I don't know, having an allergic bee sting or something, it's quite good at just determining the relation between those two things, which is something that, has been quite difficult in the natural language processing field to do accurately.
Relation extraction is hard.
Field. Yeah. So lots of promise there.
I just want to mention here, this works well, but this worked well also before. This is not really an advancement. Like, I wouldn't say it is better than O1 or O3. I've tested O3 and it is basically on the same level. I would even say maybe in some cases O3 is a bit better in following the guidelines. So this is not where it shines. What we were talking before is where it really shines. It still works extremely well, but maybe not like next 50% level. Better than O3 or whatever.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think, like you said, hallucinations is still a problem. So, some of those SNOMED codes didn't work; they were hallucinated. And I just wanted to bring up the only medical example they had in the system card was this one. So they basically prompted Claude 3.7 to write a scientific paper about the impacts of sugar on the human body, give some references, and they said here, like, all these references were hallucinations, or a lot of them were. So this Journal of Clinical Investigation, blah, blah, blah. This paper doesn't exist. And they discussed this in the model card. But I think that what's interesting is that this is something that's plagued large language models from day one. And, even now, despite reasoning, despite everything else, it's still hallucinating. Like, I feel like the incidence of hallucinations are getting lower and rarer, but it's interesting still happening, like frequently enough for us to notice, right?
No, I agree, but I also think we know where it will hallucinate. Like, we are also getting better at using them. I will never ask it to do SNOMED coding because I expect it to hallucinate. I will never ask it to give me citations for papers because I know it will hallucinate. I will do it in a different way. I'll do a RAG or just have a vector database somewhere and find the appropriate articles. I'll use Perplexity because Perplexity is good at that. So there are other ways to basically do find citations, find the sources if you want to do that.
So I was also interested, inspired from my medical school days, to see whether Claude can make anatomy learner. So just make a human body and put some organs inside and put a label. So like you can show organ labels here, for example. It's quite interesting, right? Because look, I can press on the head here and it tells you about the brain. And it sounds quite good. The funny thing, right, is like the anatomy is still a bit wrong. And like the large intestines down here is like around the groin area and floating in the air. But the functions are correct.
Yeah, but okay, that was probably not the best way to draw these. Like, I think, whoa, what's that?
I told it to make it more fun and dynamic. So this is 2 prompts. This is 2 prompts. So it's kind of amazing. I mean, lungs are a bit low. But in general, it looks right. It looks okay.
I think like there is a better way to draw it. Maybe didn't pick the best way. because you cannot also put all the organs there, given you don't have that much space. But still,
Yeah. But still, look,
nice.
This is more interactive than a lot of lessons I had in med school.
Man.
Moving on. The next test we did was we put Claude to the test with forecasting diagnoses. So giving it a certain transcript or a patient vignette, like what's the likely diagnosis in this case. So I tested it on 5 different cases and essentially got it to suggest the top 5 diagnoses based on this vignette. Because, clinically, it's sometimes it's quite hard to say, okay, it's definitely this one diagnosis, but these differentials are likely. And we've tested this in the past, and we've built a model foresight that we talk about in the podcast to predict the next disease. So I won't go through all of them, but maybe I just take this one as an example. So this is a 64-year-old man with urinary incontinence, and on imaging it was noted that his head scan, or MRI scan usually, or CT scan, showed cerebral ventriculomegaly. So basically the ventricles of the brain, so like that's where the fluid of the brain flows through, looks a bit big. Usually that's from high pressure. He had a lumbar puncture during his inpatient stay, and he has a diagnosis of dementia. And the doctor also noticed he wasn't walking very well, so he had instability of gait. For those that are doctors, you know this famous triad that we talk about in medicine. And this points to normal pressure hydrocephalus, someone with gait instability, memory problems, and urinary problems. This often we think is because of patients that have urinary incontinence, gait instability, and memory impairments. They can get this thing called normal pressure hydrocephalus. And actually we can see here the top differential was normal pressure hydrocephalus. And everything else is given is also very sensible. This patient had a history of Alzheimer's. It's completely possible that he has Alzheimer's with some overlapping normal pressure hydrocephalus. And the other 3 are kind of different subtypes of dementia. And, we've tested this over, 5 cases, 25 different suggestions. All of them looked really sensible. And I think we are getting to the point, even ChatGPT, I think it was the differentials it gave. We tested it over 35 cases. We published the paper on this. I think it was something like 80+% were usually quite sensible suggestions. And that was 2 years ago. So now I think it's definitely jumped much higher. But I think, like you said, Željko, I don't think this is way better than the other reasoning models. I think in the previous episodes like O1 and DeepSeek that we showed, they can also do this task very well.
I agree. It is like with now these iterations, it is just every time it's looking a bit like cleaner, neater, a bit better. We don't now have, at least in this area, we are not getting the giant jumps.
Let's do the last test, because look, we talk about benchmarks, we put large language models through multiple choice questions. That's all well and good, but I think in the real world, what I'm interested in is, can the model take a good history? Can it actually lead the conversation? So I think I want to try this, and this is the first time we would try this, but I've sent Željko some possible cases that he can refer to. So this is on the Geeky Medics website. I don't know what he's going to pick, but what I want to see is, can I reach the diagnosis, or can Claude reach the diagnosis first? So what we'll do is we'll each take a question from Željko, and then at each step we'll get Claude to output what it thinks the diagnosis is, and I'll do the same, and we can see who reaches it first.
So basically I'm playing the role of a patient, and Claude and you are doctors trying to get the diagnosis.
Exactly. Okay, so my first question would be same as Claude. So Claude said, "Hello, I'm Dr. Claude. It's nice to meet you. I'll be taking care of you today." Well, Claude is asking what brings you into the hospital, which we taught you should never ask, because then they can say, "Oh, the ambulance" or whatever, right? So actually, my question is, so tell me, like, how can I help you today?
Okay, so just to set the scene a bit, I'm a 50-year-old woman. So all of this started basically like maybe 3 months ago. I was late to work after sleeping through my alarm clock, and this happened like despite me having an early night. And since then, I've been feeling tired most of the time. Like even if I sleep whatever 10, 15 hours a day, I'm still feeling a bit tired. And I'm like struggling to make it through the day. Basically, whatever I do, I just feel tired and want to sleep.
Get some rest.
Oh my God, these scared me. Siri was on another laptop.
Siri just said, "Get some rest."
Siri said, "Get some rest." Okay, sorry, I'll continue. And basically, like yesterday, I fell asleep during my lunch break, and the manager told me that I need to go to see the doctor, so that's why I'm here. And the last thing is, I've also noticed that I don't get much of an appetite.
So essentially, you're a 50-year-old lady. You've been feeling tired over the past few months, falling asleep, and there's been a loss of appetite. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So immediately we'll be thinking of something common in women would be something like anemia, so having low red blood counts, and that could link to the tiredness, and the loss of appetite could be something GI related. It could be a malignancy, it could be something about absorption, maybe you're not absorbing your iron properly and that's why you're feeling tired. That would be my thought initially. So I'll just copy and paste the same your response into Claude, and let's see what Claude says. So I guess if I had to pick one diagnosis, I'd say like iron deficient anemia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I'm right, then you can tell me to stop. But so Claude's output is listening attentively, taking notes. Thank you. You've been experiencing. So it's interesting, right? It did exactly what I did, which was summarize after the conversation what we just talked about. And then based on this, the likely diagnosis is cheating a bit. It's saying quite a few things: hypothyroidism, anemia, depression, sleep disorder. So, what question would? Wait, have you got the diagnosis already?
No, you haven't.
Okay, good.
Now you can. So we have the differential. We have I have the differential diagnosis. We still don't have it, and you can ask. I have quite a few data for follow-up questions.
I guess my question would be: has there been any change in bowel habits, including any blood in your stool?
Okay. So in general, my appetite is generally pretty good, but for the last 4 to 6 weeks, it definitely decreased. I don't feel like nausea. I just...
bowel habit. So like, has your poo changed? Like consistency of your poo, or is any blood there?
My bowels haven't recently changed. I go on average once a day and there is no blood or anything. My weight has decreased. I don't know really by how much, but I'm definitely slimmer than before.
So then basically you're tired, it's not a bowel problem, it's not a thyroid problem. Huh. That's interesting. So now I'm thinking, did I go down the wrong line with the gastric stuff? Is it something to do with sleep, maybe sleep apnea or something? But it's a bit uncommon in just a 50-year-old female. Like, I don't know your weight or what you look like, but Claude's question is Are you currently taking any medication, any prescription or over-the-counter drugs? And do you have any previous... I mean, it's cheating by asking 2 questions, so I'll just do that first question. Are you taking any medications at the moment? Oh wait, sorry, I realized I asked the question before that. The question is, could you tell me if you've noticed any other symptoms alongside the fatigue and decreased appetite? For example, your weight, cold intolerance, hair loss, or change in bowel habit. Oh, it's asking the same thing as me, but more.
Okay, any other Okay, I'll respond to Claude. I'll respond.
Yeah.
Okay, so like now that you mention it, I've noticed a few bruises in random spots where I don't remember hurting myself. Like there was one maybe 2 weeks ago, but this week there is maybe 6. So that is the only other symptom I've noticed. I don't take any medications or don't really have any other medical problems. Maybe have some eczema, but that's it.
The response from Claude is, this is quite interesting because it's even saying, oh, it's making a notes in the charts about bruising. I don't know why that's...
It is not doing that.
Okay, but it's saying thank you for that information and explain bruising increases that's increasing in frequency combined with fatigue and decreased appetite. It's something we need to investigate. So it's got a great bedside manner. It's very like caring and diligent. So because of the bruising, it's now considering potential blood disorders. This includes anemia, platelet disorders. So yeah, anemia is one of the first things we talked about. Liver could also cause this, correct? So at this point, Claude is asking, the likely diagnoses, is it one of the following? Is it a hematological disorder, anemia, thrombocytopenia, or potential leukemia? Is it a vitamin deficiency, or is it liver disease?
So I think Claude is cheating a bit, to be honest. Quite a few of them. Oh, sorry. I think like Claude is cheating a bit. There is quite a few of the differentials and it is a bit like all-encompassing, but one of them is right, basically. Like the potential leukemia is in fact one of the correct differentials from the website, from the Geeky Medics.
Ah, okay. That's very impressive. I guess this wasn't the perfect showcase because as I read, like, it's hard for me to ignore what Claude is asking. But also it's kind of listing out loads of diagnoses. But the fact it got to the diagnoses in 2 steps. Yeah, this is step 2, right? It is pretty impressive.
Exactly. No, true. And it is still it is probably with a bit more of questioning, it should become a bit more precise because only one of the, on the website, we have 3 differentials. Only one of them is correct. So I probably think with a bit more, we would get to all the 3 correct differentials.
I think what was interesting to me is that we headed down initially like very similar differentials. And we're both thinking about anemia. We're both thinking whether it's something gastric or something like that. So, obviously, I don't think AI chatbots are ready still. Obviously, if you're a patient, don't actually go on Claude and start asking, taking a history and things like that. Like, seek a medical professional. This is just a showcase of when things go right, and this is an N of 1. Like there's many cases where AI can go wrong as well, and there's biases and things like that. So obviously don't do this if you're at home. I think it's very nice. Like this is very impressive to me that LLMs can take histories as well. So it's not just about benchmarks, but
yeah. But I'll be honest, I don't see a way that in a year or 2, we don't have something that does this perfectly. I don't see a way that together with the doctor, that you don't have an outstandingly awesome assistant that is really capable of doing like 95% of the job, and then you jump in on the 5% where something crucial, important, whatever is needed, or at the end or something. There is no way it will not be able to take a patient history or even like get to the top 10 differentials or something, because maybe the doctor is there to decide on the procedures, on the tests, on whatever, but there is no way it is not able to do the brunt of the work, or the annoying, I don't want to say the annoying part, but maybe the more boring.
Yeah, I think definitely automating administration, but also I think with regards to this example, history taking, I think it's like that graph we saw, right? Like 2025 is when Claude collaborates, and
Yes,
even taking the history with Claude, I felt like I was collaborating with it. Like it was generating more ideas, and then that fed into my brain, and I started thinking, oh, should I actually? That sense, and I can choose to reject or accept those suggestions, right? I can think like, oh yeah, that's a good suggestion. Let's ask about that. Or I can say, no, that's from my training, from my experience. This is not a good way to go. Like, yeah, it's like a collaborative approach.
no, exactly. And I do think like there was a couple of papers that are showing doctors with these tools don't work as well as doctors by themselves or tools by themselves. But I think this is the standard case of you need time to get used to things. Like even me coding, the first 2 weeks, I was not faster using Cursor or using Claude or whatever. But after I learned how to do it and how to use it and how to work with it, I was 3 times faster than I was before, or 3 times better than I was before. After some time, you understand what's it good at, what it's bad at, how should I ask it questions. I think like that is probably also an adjustment period that anyone working with AI would need.
Yeah, and it's like you said, with each new model, with each thing, we learn more about the limitations and strengths of each model, and we learn about how to interact. And I adapt my own behavior when I'm, prompting different models. So I think there's a lot of learning there.
Okay, this was awesome. This was a great episode. To be honest, sometimes when we do this, I have a feeling the AGI is already here. When you go through this and when you see like everything that is possible, it's unbelievable. We can now build games in seconds. We can build websites in seconds. We can have history taking in seconds. Like there is a lot of things that we can already do. So I'm really excited about the future, and awesome to see the advancements that are happening in the AI field.
Yeah, and I think in the future episode, we're going to talk more about agents, so stay tuned for that. But thank you for listening, and like and subscribe on our channel, and always leave a comment. We always love to hear from you. And that's it for this one. So yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.